Good morning or evening, depending on where you're watching from. I hope you've had a wonderful winter, and honestly, I can't believe that it is already March. So, my name is Sheila, and I work here at the Alaska Raptor Center as an avian care specialist. The Alaska Raptor Center is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are dedicated to the rescue, rehabilitation, and release of wild Alaska birds. Every year, we treat somewhere between 100 to 200 patients, helping them get onto their feet and back into the air. Of course, with any rehab facility, there are always some patients who can't be released back out into the wild. So, another part of my job is taking care of our resident raptors and working with them to educate the public about birds and the ever changing ecosystems that they live in. During summertime in Sitka, we see many visitors and have the opportunity to discuss our feathered friends with them. On to the actual topic.
Yeah, I think we got enough people coming in now.
Now we can go on to the topic for today. I am going to be talking about the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, when and why it started, how it helps bird populations, and what it means for us. Occasionally, here at the Alaska Raptor Center, we get visitors who ask if they can have one of the feathers from our birds. Unfortunately, we cannot give them away. Even us, we cannot keep them. When a feather molts off one of our birds, we have to collect it and send it to the repository in Colorado, if it's a bald eagle feather. If it's from a hawk or an owl, it goes to Arizona. The repositories then distribute the feathers to cultural groups for religious purposes, or to other facilities that are permitted to use them for educational displays. We do this because the birds are protected underneath the Migratory Bird Act. So the Migratory Bird Treaty Act is an important piece of environmental legislation here in the United States that was passed in 1918. Back then, it was incredibly fashionable for ladies to have hats that were adorned with just massive amounts of feathers. And that put a huge demand on the bird populations. They were basically declining at a very alarming rate. That led to the extinction of some birds like the Labrador ducks, great auks, passenger pigeons, Carolina parakeets, and heath hens. So what the Migratory Bird Treaty Act did was it tried to combat the overhunting and poaching of birds by making it a federal crime to take these birds or their bird parts without special permits, and that does include feathers. That means it prohibits the hunting, killing, capturing, selling of these birds or the destruction of their eggs and nests. This protection is essential for ensuring the continued survival of our birds. Initially, the treaty was just between US and Canada, but eventually Russia, Mexico, Japan all joined in order to help protect our migratory birds. Oftentimes, the paths of migratory birds will take them from one country to the next because when they're up in the air, they can't see the lines we've drawn on the ground. In fact, some birds like the Swainson's hawk will go from here in Alaska to Argentina, so crossing many country borders. That means all of us have to work together to help them out. In the 100 years since the act was passed, oh wait, no, hang on. There we go. Okay. There is an incredibly extensive list of over 1,000 bird species that are covered by the Migratory Bird Act, including the majority of United States bird species. But not quite all birds are covered. In fact, birds like invasive species such as the house sparrow or the European starling, they are definitely not covered. And some game birds like ducks, geese, doves, and many shorebirds are subject to limited protections because there is a hunting season for them. Although many of the birds protected by the Act are not considered long-range migrants, they are still afforded protection under the Act because the birds are moving around in search of local food sources. In the hundreds of years since the act was implemented, it has been instrumental in protecting birds like cranes, egrets, yellow-billed cuckoos, hummingbirds, doves, raptors, and over 100 other species. Snowy egrets were especially important in this. Back in the 1880s, the breeding plumes that they grow during breeding season were valued at over $30 per ounce, which was twice the cost of gold. So you can imagine why hunters were really eager to harvest them. Since they have been placed under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act's protection, their numbers have been allowed to reclimb, and they are now more widespread and common than ever. So what does the Migratory Bird Treaty Act mean for you and me? Any person, association, partnership, or corporation which violates the MBTA regulations may be found guilty of a Class B misdemeanor and subject to a fine of up to $15,000, up to 6 months in jail, or both. So does that mean that if you hit a hawk with your car, you'll go to jail? It does not. As long as it was not intentional or caused by negligence. Just be sure to alert the proper authorities to the incident. And that brings me back to the feather question. Why is it illegal to own feathers from federally protected birds? And that is because it is impossible to tell if a feather naturally molted or if it was plucked from a poached bird. So just to be careful, they make it all illegal. Nowadays, big feathered hats are not in style. As far as I know, I'm not really up on fashion, so they might be. To this day, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act remains the primary tool for protecting non-endangered species. There is a current push to update the act as there are a bunch of new threats that are encountered by migrating birds. In fact, 40% of all bird populations are currently on the decline. Loss, degradation, and fragmentation of important habitats is attributed to being one of the most threatening things that the birds are facing right now. Unfortunately, no federal court has held that the MBTA applies to habitat destruction that indirectly causes deaths of migratory birds. So unless it's breeding season, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act can't help. Another threat that is currently threatening the migratory bird populations is due to when they migrate. Many migratory bird species migrate at night, and they depend on being able to see the night sky in order to navigate. When their route passes over cities, they can become disoriented, run into buildings, or fly in circles for so long that they die of exhaustion. The Migratory Bird Act sadly can't help with that. However, the Audubon Society currently has a Lights Out initiative, and their website suggests things like extinguishing exterior lights and floodlights, reducing atrium lighting, and substituting strobe lights wherever possible, and of course, using motion detectors or blackout curtains. I'm going to talk about one more threat to migratory birds before I move on to questions, and that is pesticides, which can directly and indirectly affect migratory birds. Directly, some pesticides have been shown to cause the bird's body weight to go down, and they are disoriented for days after they are exposed to it. Indirectly, the pesticides reduce the population of insects, which the birds greatly depend on in order to gain their energy stores in order to be able to migrate. If they don't have enough food, they're not going to go far. So if you want to help all these migratory birds survive, then you can keep your habitat bird friendly. Keep your cats inside, grow native plant species with no pesticides that will encourage the populations of local bugs that these birds depend on. If you do have a bird feeder, then keep it clean so you're not risking spreading any disease through the bird populations. And of course, put decals or stickers on your windows to make sure they don't try to fly through them. And one other thing is, if you see any rare birds and you can get a picture of it, share that sighting on eBird or iNaturalist. Monitoring birds' population is essential in order to protect them, but tracking the 10,000 bird species is incredibly challenging for scientists, so any help is appreciated. All right, thank you guys so much for letting me ramble. I think we're going to move on to questions now. If you have any that are on topic or off topic, as long as they're about birds, I can hopefully answer them.
We did have 2 people ask, excuse me, are there any birds that are not covered under the Migratory Bird Act in North America?
In North America, yes, we have some invasive species such as the European starling, the house sparrow, and then there was one other one.
Eurasian rock dove?
Yes, thank you. The pigeon, basically.
Does that mean that even little songbirds are covered by these acts and I cannot have their feathers?
Unfortunately, yes. Well, I guess fortunately. Even small birds, especially the ones that migrate, like warblers, they are protected underneath the Migratory Bird Act. However, the main purpose of the Migratory Bird Act is to prevent them from being sold. So if you have one in your house, I don't recommend it, but no one's actually going to be searching you for it.
And someone says, I'm a fly fisherman. How do I get feathers legally?
So there are feathers you can use legally. Chicken feathers, turkey feathers, basically any domestic species. So pheasants have very colorful feathers. If they're a domestic species, then you can use their feathers for fly fishing.
If the bird doesn't move or migrate, does that mean I can have
it? It more applies to the entire species. So one single bird wouldn't count, I don't think.
How can you legally have feathers?
There are ways to legally have feathers. You can get an educational permit in order to display them. The permits tend to go to facilities. So at our facility, we do have the ability to present stuff for educational purposes. However, I can't personally own feathers, but as a member working for the Raptor Center, I can salvage feathers in order to bring them here. Does that answer the question? I hope it does.
If I have native heritage, can I collect feathers?
Can someone? Yes, sort of. They still need to get permits, but they're easier to get for natives than they are for typical people. I feel like I said that wrong, but that's okay.
Someone asked, how many bird species are in North America?
Oh, I have lots over. I don't want to Google it. I don't have a Google machine.
We can look it up later and put it in the comments.
Yeah, we'll do that. I don't know off the top of my head exactly how many are out there, and I don't want to give a wrong answer.
Do eagles migrate?
Do eagles migrate? So, yes and no. Here in Alaska, they are considered nomadic. So they wander from river to river following the fish runs. However, in the lower 48 states, when the lakes and rivers freeze, they will migrate out to the coast. They don't tend to go to the coast here because most of Southeast Alaska is the coast.
Ooh, which bird has the longest migration?
That would be the Arctic tern. So they go from all the way at the North Pole in Greenland and then down to the South Pole. So it's pretty far.
And someone commented, which is one of my favorite facts, Swainson's hawks migrate a really far way also.
Yes, they have been seen here in Alaska, and then they go all the way down to Argentina.
Why are the birds that don't migrate still protected under the Migratory, capital Bird Act?
So the migratory part of that name, it is kind of a misnomer. It's more if the bird moves to get food, then it is considered protected under the Migratory Bird Act, and it's very broad how far they have to move.
Is it typical to see golden and bald eagles hunting together?
Not typically. People do say they see it, but it's usually a juvenile bald eagle that they're actually seeing. Golden eagles much prefer to hunt small mammals, so they're going to be on the interior areas away from the waterways, whereas bald eagles like to be by coasts and rivers and lakes.
I think we're starting to run dry on questions.
That's fine. All right. thank you guys so much for watching. I know we have kind of given you a lot of information to ingest today, but I really appreciate all of you coming by to listen to me. The Alaska Raptor Center is pretty active on all of the social media sites, so you are welcome to check us out on those. We also have our own website, AlaskaRaptor.org, if you want to check us out and check out the birds that we have. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we help the birds, so we hope that you love them as much as we do. Button is not cooperating. Perfect. All right.